like to start welcome and roll call.
Chairwoman Weber-McLeod.
Present.
Mr. Andre.
Present.
Mr. Gotti is excused. Ms. Crawford is excused. Mayor Giantino.
Here.
Mr. Lovell.
Here.
Ms. Walter.
Here.
Ms. Hennigan.
Here.
Mr. Del Favaro.
There you go, I got it. I am here.
The next thing is that everyone should have received a copy of the minutes as part of your board packet. Do you have any questions, comments, concerns, revisions? Good. Karen is looking at something. I did, but the question that I get is, Okay. Well, welcome to our world. A motion is on the floor to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dorothy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's great. Thank you, Matt. We have new business.
So today we have Daniel here with us to review the 2025 audit. They just met with the audit committee, who is, their report is that they're recommending accepting the audit as written. But Peggy and Taylor are going to just run through a quick summary for us and answer any questions you might have.
So I'm Peggy Rowe, and I'm the audit partner on the engagement, and we have Taylor, who is the senior on the job, and she's going to give you a quick synopsis.
Can I just do something quickly? Did everyone introduce yourself to our guests prior to meeting?
No.
Well, we're gonna act like we don't know. Sorry. Hi, I think most of you know me. I'm Gwen Weber-McLeod. I'm the president of the Auburn Industrial Development. Any people next for me?
And Karen Walter, committee member at large.
Courtney Hennigan, committee member.
We met in the previous meeting.
I'm Rob Boyer, I'm attorney for the authority.
We met. Earlier.
Thank you very much. You shall see.
My bad.
And what?
My bad, sorry.
That's okay. Just that Colonel kid coming out.
So I'm Taylor Green, the senior. We went through pretty thoroughly with the financial statements and committee report already, so I'm gonna do a much higher level run through. Please stop me at any point if you have any questions. So the thicker packet is the financial statements. The first 3 pages is our auditor's opinion. Basically just states that we issued an unmodified, is the technical term, or a clean opinion. We go further, it mentions our responsibilities, management's responsibilities, the required reporting that's included in these financial statements in order for them to be in compliance with government auditing standards. Starting on page 5 is the management's discussion and analysis. This is not an audited report. It's prepared by the authority, Tracy specifically, but we did confirm any numbers that are easily traceable to the financial statements. We did verify that those are correct, but other than that, the remainder of the information is just what Tracy provided. The analysis, what goes in here is fully determined by management. I'm gonna skip forward. Good question?
No, I was just thinking like, oh, if I could determine, I could have a lot of fun next year.
If we skip forward to page 9, this is the statement of net position, or the balance sheet, which is a for-profit term. This is where our actual audited financial statements kind of begin. As you can see, everything is pretty similar year over year. Cash increased mostly because you had received pilot payments right at year end. It didn't go out until January, which is why the pilot payment payable balance is much higher than the prior year. Since your pilot payments are currently due 12/31, cash and pilot payments receivable and payable fluctuate pretty kind of greatly, significantly year over year. continue on to the next page with the statements of revenue and expenses, your income statement. You'll see there's 2 administrative fee income revenue, 2 application revenue included in that 45,000. Again, everything is really similar year over year. You'll see the non-operating revenue and expenses includes for the prior year, the forgiveness of pilot penalty and interest. You were on the board from the prior year. You'll remember that pilot payments need to be paid out within 30 days of being collected. If not, you should be reporting penalties, accruing penalties and interest that the authority is required to pay personally. 25,000 of those penalties and interest from not timely paying was forgiven by the city and school districts, town, city, school districts in the prior year. You're still waiting on the county to provide forgiveness, so included on your balance sheet and the pilot payments payable is the county's penalty and interest. As of right now, the county is still not given forgiveness on that, and that has still not yet been paid out. If you continue on, the statements of changes in that position, this is the required disclosures, just breaking out your net position between invested in capital assets and unrestricted. Your invested in capital assets is just the value of your fixed assets, your property and equipment, so that's what that fluctuation is every year. The next page is the statement of cash flows, page 12. Your financial statements are reported on an accrual basis. This kind of takes that accrual basis and breaks it out into actual cash flows, actual cash payments coming in and out the door. You can see overall net cash provided by your operating activities, your core activities, was about $260,000 versus last year you had net cash used for your operating activities of almost $1.2 million. Again, that's really your pilot payments, just timing at year end. So that's going to fluctuate again greatly every year. Overall, you had a net increase in cash of $310,000 this year versus 1.3-ish million net decrease in cash last year. The statement of cash flows continues on page 13, where this takes your kind of net position or your net loss and backs it into the net cash provided by use for operating activities by backing out any non-cash balance sheet activity. Starting on page 14 is the notes to the financial statements. These are pretty much the same year over year with just slight tweaking in the wording. It goes through your note 1, summary of significant accounting policies, a slight background description of the organization, and then how the accounting for of significant accounts. Your revenue recognition policy is at the bottom. This will potentially be tweaked depending on the fee policy next year. It's not going to change for this year unless you'd like it to, but for 2026 year, with that fee policy being adopted and changing your revenue, we'll update that next year. Continuing on, page 15, it explains more information about the pilot. It does mention that you had 14 pilot programs in 25 and 13 in 24, and the actual billings on both of those. On page 16, you do have a conduit debt obligation. This is with Bluefield Manor, the debt of $734,000. It's an off-balance sheet item, so it's not included in your balance sheet as a liability, but it is disclosed in the financial statement. So it's not your debt, but like a guarantor of the debt.
Not quite.
Not guarantor.
Yeah, because we're not responsible for it necessarily, but the tax exemption. So we're just like in the title line.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't actually get included in your balance sheet, though, your bottom line. It's just a little disclosure. Continue on, it goes into notes 2, 3, 4, so on. This is just more detail on some of those important accounts that require a little more disclosure. Again, a lot of these are required disclosures. You will see note payable, that will be removed next year. It just states that there was a note payable that was fully paid off in 2024. Since these are comparative statements, that disclosure is still there, but it will be fully removed next year. And then page 18 goes into some required reporting in accordance with government auditing standards. This report basically just says that As part of our audit, we obtained an understanding of your internal controls in order to design our audit procedures, but we are not expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of those controls. However, during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal controls or material. And then we also report on compliance, and we do note that we did not identify any instances of non-compliance. And then page 20, another required report, just stating that our audit was in compliance with the New York State Public Authorities Law, and that we didn't identify any non-compliance there as well. And then the final page, 21, the schedule of findings and responses. This basically summarizes all of the opinions that we expressed unmodified opinions, that there were no material weaknesses of your internal controls, and there were no material instances of noncompliance, and that there were no prior audit findings. Prior audit findings would be, you had findings in 24, basically the status of what those findings were. You had findings in 23, your results in 24, so there's nothing we need to disclose going forward unless new findings were to occur, which you did not. And those are the financial statements. Tracy or Gwen, would you like us to go through these reports to the committee, or?
What is the committee?
I think the one thing, maybe just the one, audit adjustment would be a good thing to mention.
So the committee report is just a lot of required technical jargon. But on PDF, page number 3, I think it's actually like page 4 or 5, flipping through, but it's page number 3. We say any corrected and uncorrected misstatements. So uncorrected misstatements, there were none. Corrected misstatements, we had one, just to correct the net asset roll forward. This is a very immaterial adjustment, and if it was any other account balance, we wouldn't have even posted the entry or brought it to your attention. But because net assets needs to tie year over year, so it's kind of the most important account that needs to roll forward, it was $1,000 difference. So I think we probably threw it to a miscellaneous account just because it's not even material enough to really dig into the difference. But that was our only adjustment that we had. There was no other adjustments.
Colleagues and audit committee, questions, comments, concerns, in your hearts or minds? Parents looking, Tracy?
Yes, I'll say that,
Any observations, audit committee?
I'll just say that it went really quickly and smoothly this year with the online QuickBooks account, because they could access all the information they needed and just ask me for whatever they didn't have there. So like for the testing, they asked me for copies of invoices and checks and backup documentation around pilots. But it was a quick and painless process for me, at least. Which tends to also mean that it's quick and painless for you, if not them.
And just for auditors, any themes or messages or observations you have about where we were and where we are?
Yeah, significant improvement. Again, for those who have been here a few years, you would remember that there was you're required to pay out the pilots in 30 days of collections, and under previous staffing, that was not being done. It was not the New York State Public Authorities Law, that timely payment. When we did our audit, there was significant delays in those payments, which resulted in findings and being reported in the financial statements, and we didn't have a single issue this year. Every single payment was timely out the door.
That is the goal. And again, Tracy, I'd like to thank you, and I don't feel that Todd is here, but if we can just note that I think a lot of that is due to our new executive director, interim, and our chair and this board being very, committed to acting on the record. Is there anything else? Did you find that you're looking for here?
No, I'm good.
Okay, you good?
Thank you for the time.
No, that's okay, I was giving you the time. Anyone else? Is the next thing to ask for a motion to accept the audit report?
It sure is.
I'm reading my notes very well. I would entertain that motion if it come out of committee, if the committee wants to bring it forward. The committee, audit committee approved, it doesn't need a second, but we'll take one anyway. Any other questions, discussions? All those in favor? Any opposed, abstentions? Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank
You will reach out and we'll have to get the management representation letter and then we'll get this issued shortly.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And, Tracy, anything else under business?
So, yes, so the next thing is the, annual reporting for Paris. When we certify this, we do need to, or when I certify this, in Paris, which is the Public Authority Reporting Information System, I have to check a box that says that the board has seen and approved this. And so that's what we're doing today, is saying that you've seen and approved it. In the packet, I don't want to go through it page by page, so I provided that cover sheet to kind of give you a sense of what's on each page, so you don't actually see it. So I'm just going to ask if there's any questions, concerns, in particular the accomplishments report or the measurement report, is there anything I missed or seems misstated? So I just want to make sure that everyone's comfortable with the reporting as it's presented. There might be one or two tweaks in project numbers based on some conversations I'm having with projects, but it wouldn't be significant. It might be like a job number changes by one or two. So, yeah, opening to comments, questions, concerns, adjustments. 90 pages of the packet, so.
I did review, report in educational, like, I was looking for job creation, and there was, but it was for the projects that did not create jobs, it was, so noted.
Anything else? Tracy, did you review the Paris report process with Matt and Courtney when you onboarded them?
I mentioned that it's a thing.
Could you help them understand, don't they?
Well, I took that course.
Good.
They covered that.
Great.
Yeah.
Courtney, do you feel like you could use just a little refresh? Everything's good.
I can always use educational tools from Tracy.
Okay. So I just, and again, notice that I'm doing that because I know you're smart. But I just like to make sure that we all have common understanding.
And I appreciate you on that backup because I don't want to be out of the loop.
Yep, I got that. Mayor, did you have something to say?
Yeah, one thing about, when we list the board members, and it has term start date and expiration date, everybody's been reappointed.
But in 2026, and this is a 2025 report, so it's
Okay.
as of December 31st, 2025.
Okay.
Anything else?
On the Bluefield Manor report, is it taxable bonds? I think it's tax exempt, I think.
They are exactly where they've always been. I can't even change it at this point, I don't think.
I don't know how much that really matters. On page 67 of 113.
Let's go there.
There you go. See federal tax.
Oh, this? Oh my gosh, that was entered in, when it was approved, 1999, and it's part of the section I can't change.
Okay.
Federal tax status, yeah,
Oh, forget I spoke then. It was just,
Yeah, I mean, I can ask them about it and see if we can either change it or why it's like that. I'll note it.
yeah, I don't understand why ADO would care that much.
Yeah, I'll just ask them about that. I'll just send them a note. They're really good. I email them a couple days, they email back, they tell me what they want.
So, from our perspective, it's not an issue.
Anything else?
So do these ever fall off, like, it was like, planned to end 2019?
Yeah, so Bluefield Manor, is only hanging out because that bond is still open and it's like a 25 or 30-year bond, whereas their pilot was planned to end in 2019.
Right.
So that one is not gonna fall off until the bond is gone. However, some other projects, so like, the hotel, their bond, or their pilot goes through 2036. So they'll be in here until the last pilot payment, like the last year we receive and disperse pilots for them, and then they'll come off. So like you'll notice that, this year, Community Computer Medin is not in the report because their pilot is over and they dropped out of it. Or dropped out of the report.
Right. And Bluefield, man, they must have more than 9 folks.
Yeah, we don't. That's what they told me. I don't know. They did report to me, and that seemed low,
Right.
but that's the number they gave me, and there's not.
You go.
Sometimes what might happen is things get recategorized, like if they're like contracting workers from like a nursing agency or something, those would no longer count in this instance, or for this reporting. So it could be that they're doing something different with their staffing than they. But I agree, they have to have more than 9 people there.
With employee leasing is very common in that.
Or you would hope, I agree with Rob, because a lot of those independent living facilities, like 55 plus as well, want to hire us.
So yeah, I mean, my guess is that they're leasing, some kind of a separate staffing entity for some of their people.
That's most likely the case.
I don't know that for sure, that's just my guess.
Anything else related to the Paris report? Good.
And I will make sure I get together with Tracy, a day and time, take care of that.
I know Courtney just really helped me to be in a one-on-one situation and just have Tracy walk me through it, and I just want to make sure that we all are understanding. And I don't want anyone to ever be hesitant to be like, huh? So that's why I ask, it's not challenging anyone, it's just like I'm just committed to us having sure. Target industry selection?
Before we do that, can we just do a motion to
Yes.
accept the reporting?
Absolutely. I would entertain a motion to accept the parents reporting as presented.
Move that.
Thank you, Dean, second.
Second.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Say what you need, Trey.
Did.
All right.
And I, just playing off of that, I would like to see the review of the project monitoring. Someone tell me what page that's on? Probably something like
91.
oh my gosh, that's so much further than I thought it was.
There you go.
Found it. Okay, so this is the reporting, it's a little too big. So this is the job reporting that we got for 2025. I have not received the reporting from JBJ and Logan Lops yet. Those are technically small numbers. Logan lost is their maintenance folks. JPJ is based on their tenants, so I'm still tracking those down, but everybody else, oh, and Caravelle, I haven't gotten yet. Everybody else has reported. Beaumere is actually ahead of where they, thought they would be at this point. This is the first year of their pilot, and they've actually created 4.3 jobs already, and their goal for this year was only 3. So they're ahead of schedule on their job creation. The Hilton is a little below where they should be, 34 versus 39. I don't see that to be necessarily a significant difference, but I think it's, in the hotel industry, it tends to be an issue of filling positions more so than not needing the positions or not being willing to hire the positions. So this is a workforce factor. I'm going to jump out into RJC because the same thing is happening there. I spoke with them at length about their employment because they should be, according to their application, at the 72 employees by now. They're only at 26. We talked about this in previous months, that they have really been struggling to fill their positions. They actually had to temporarily shut down a whole, as an apex portion of their business, because they only had one heavy machine equipment, or one heavy mechanic. Because what they used to do, Apex on the Apex side, is other companies would bring their trucks in, Apex would do maintenance on those trucks, they would get paid for that. Now that they only have one mechanic, now that they only had one mechanic, they couldn't do that for other people, they could only maintain their own fleet. I do know that they have hired another one, more recently, so they're starting to pick up the mechanics again, and when they have those mechanics, that will allow them to reopen that side of the business, which will then also create, bring some of those other jobs, to support that side of the business. So, this shortfall is a factor of recruitment and retaining employees. They're doing a lot to try to address that. We talked through a number of actions they've taken, bonuses they've offered, resources they're utilizing, and they're just really struggling to get to that point, not because they don't want to have 72 people, but because they can't find those people for the position.
And what is what would I know them by in the community?
So RICO is the name of the main business?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Tracy, can I just say,
Yes.
I don't wanna get into it, because I don't wanna get on my high horse, but they pay terrible and they treat people terrible. That is, last year my stepson worked for them very temporary. He was expecting people to get in their own vehicles, drive up to just past camp, not getting paid. So I called up to Buffalo to the labor board and got them on him. That's ridiculous. That's illegal. So that's why nobody wants to work for him. He gets people, and my stepson is a heavy equipment operator. And, so he told the guy, he said, "You're a clown, you're illegal." Then he told me about it, and I said, "You might as well call up to Buffalo tomorrow." He said, "No, someone's got to strip him out." That's why he has a hard time. He needs to follow the law, and he needs to pay people. I mean, right now, he's working on the I-81 project, making 60 prevailing wage, and he's making $65 an hour. The guy was paying him like 22, and then not paying him until they got to the work site. That's illegal. You can't do that. And can I say one more thing? Then I'll jump off the course. I know we don't control this, and everyone, if you remember, that's against that Health Central, old building in Auburn, all my siblings went to. My 2 sisters graduated from there. The rest of us went there when I was in elementary school for a few years, when they were adding on to Casey Park. I go there because Dr. Spar's there. I hope I'm still around. What is that? Date? Because we know at least a year before you're gonna come in for another pilot. I mean, that's his track record. That building is terrible. The bushes, that's bushes out on the side, where they tore down the old part of that building, are up above the roof line. That's 3 stories. The inside of the building is disgusting. And that's a beautiful old building. It probably looked about the same way when it was vacant. The bathroom on the first floor, that's the common bathroom. I went in there before I left. I go to gas stations bathrooms that were better. I mean, that guy getting away with murder. I know we have nothing. I'd love to have him in here in front of us again. I'd make what I said to Auburn Hospital look like a sweet, oh, you weren't around that.
I'm sure you. They were.
A sweet conversation. I mean, he's getting away with murder. I suggest any of us walk in that building, go in the men's room, or I mean, I know it has nothing to do with us, but I don't fly that way. He's getting tax breaks, has since day one, and that building, he's just letting it go to hell. I mean, the doctor's offices are taken care of by the doctors, but the hallways, the entrance, the bathroom, all the common areas look pathetic. It's disgusting. And he doesn't have a lot of empty space in there. He comes in here to tell us, well, what you can get for doctor spaces in Rochester and Syracuse are so different from what you can get in Auburn. No, that's not, he needs to get that cleaned up. He should be ashamed of himself.
We actually did a site monitoring there, didn't we, Tracy? And had what I felt was a relatively decent conversation, but in this vein, I want to let, there are challenges with projects that are under our purview, that I'm always open to us going back and doing another site-based visit, raising these concerns with the project. And thank you for sharing your perspective about that.
Yeah.
And we will just be mindful of
He
those kinds of things.
should be a state or national politician. You really should. He's smart.
Well, we can always meet with them, because we did. And again, that is, I'm clear with that. I want to thank you.
I just don't appreciate it. I love Auburn, and I could be chief cheerleader of Auburn. I don't appreciate this stuff.
I understand.
I don't appreciate it at all.
And again, for us, that's why we do site monitoring visits, your perspectives about what is happening with some of our projects. I'm always open to hearing that, and when they're under our purview, I think those are certainly concerns that we should bring to those that manage the project.
Okay, so thank you.
So in terms of just, I think that, to Bill's point, I think RJC is the project that we really need to have a conversation about in terms of what our expectations are, from them moving forward. And, I think the rest of them, we have a pretty good sense of where they're at, why they are where they are, or, they're relatively close to where they should be. So I think that RJC one is one that we just need to be, pay attention to and think about, what is our expectation to see from them next year? Or is there something we'd like to do at this point to put them on notice, or, technically speaking, you could choose to terminate their pilot based on this. So I just want to throw it out there that this is the one that I feel like we really need to have a conversation about in terms of expectations or what we want to do about it, so that we can make clear to them what we'd like to see, whether that's information about their wage levels or some more detailed information about their hiring practices or issues they've had with labor. So just open to thoughts about this and make sure that we have.
I would say, Tracy, that I do think it's important that we have a handle on what our expectations are, what the dynamics are behind the numbers. And it's just a part of our monitoring process. That's what I would offer.
I would offer that if we're still seeing numbers like this in a couple of years, or if next year we're not seeing improvement in this number, you know, it becomes a very, I think it needs to be taken seriously, and we need to have that conversation. I think I've already kind of expressed to them that we are expecting them to get there, and what their plans are to get here, even if they're not here now. But, you know, come this time next year, if we're seeing 26 again, I think it needs to be a much stronger conversation, once, you know, given what they told us they were going to bring to us.
He's not gonna get there, Tracy, I wouldn't rate.
I'm not saying he's
He's not gonna-
72, I'm saying
he's
if
not
we
gonna
see
get
26
anywhere near
again,
72.
you know.
Is it something that's worth writing a letter to make sure that it's documented, that that's the expectation, and then next year, that decision can be made?
With Micron and I-81, that kind of laborers. My stepson is just, not who he works for, it's how much money he's gonna make, but he gets calls all the time.
So I think our business question is, and I think Dan, I just want to let that be on the table, is Dan's offering, do we want to let them know that we observe this at this point in our project monitoring, and that we are keeping an eye on it and hope that they will stay in communication with us about that number meeting their projected goal and the reasons why. Is that what I'm hearing you kind of thinking?
Yeah, but also like there can be consequences for not doing that, you know? So that a year from now, when we go back and look at it, if it doesn't look better, at least we have a piece of paper that we have something, we know that they've got, and we know that they're on notice to do that. And it's not, well, we never knew.
Yeah.
You know?
Nothing sudden. Nothing sudden, something you took notice about.
Documentation always helps.
Tracy, what's the board's just general feeling about the idea of submitting a letter? The mayor wants to.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea to be on record and write it. And just, I would reference what the provisions of the pilot are.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying you haven't spoken with them, but I think anytime you have the verbal conversation, that's good, but people forget.
Memorialize.
Yeah.
Memorialize.
It's also easy to perceive a wink when you're having a verbal conversation, whether it's there or not.
And I think that, you know, what we're tasked with doing here with pilots, they're always controversial, right? Even when day one, they're bringing in more tax revenue than previous to the pilot. I think we owe it to the public to show, like, we're doing our due diligence. There are consequences for not living up to what the projections are. And I think that goes a long way, showing that we're serious and that we take our role serious as industrial development.
That was a feel-good story. That was a feel-good story, that pilot. Local company, one like that, put a lot of money into that building. It was a feel-good story, but not worth living up to what they told us it was gonna.
Yeah, you're right, but the reality of it is, it was a unanimous vote.
Yeah.
We all voted for it.
Yeah.
So I think the next step is send a letter. Here's where we're at. Thank you for investing. It doesn't have to be threatening.
No.
But just, here's the next step.
I missed that meeting. Was that the meeting that we had that he wasn't there? Guys, did we have a meeting there?
No, we did go to their facility.
Yeah.
It was very nice. So, all right, so do we need to have a motion for this? So Tracy, do you want to draft something, share it with us at our next meeting, and then we can talk about it?
I'll draft it and just circulate it by email.
Okay.
And unless there's any concerns about the wording of it noted within a certain amount of time, I'll just.
And I don't think it would hurt for us to embed this as a practice, because I agree with the mayor. I think that people are, because we're being more transparent, people are more curious about what we're doing. And I think that, it is important that we be positioned, should any questions arise, to let people know that we are on the job.
Is there anything relative to Southern County?
Yeah, I was just about to say, as a So this is something that's been going on for a very long time with Seminary Commons. So since we do have folks who are new to Seminary Commons, originally in their pilot, it was 3 parcels. And one of them specifically was a grocery store, which was where a lot of the employment was coming from. This is also why we don't base on tenants anymore, because tenants are coming and going. So it was a grocery store. The grocery store closed, and so their job numbers plummeted outside of their own control. And it took them a while to figure out what was going on with that block. And Ada had a lot of, was understanding during that time. As you know, now it's actually only 2 parcels in the pilot. The 3rd parcel is now the fire department on the fire station. So they now only have 2 pilots, or 2 parcels in there, and they've completely redeveloped it into like a local business hub almost. So the Citizen is there now, the Pit Stop, which is a daycare type facility, So What, the resale crafting store, which is where we had a meeting there. It was fun and interesting. AHT, a gym, Menden, and Matcha 3-leaf tea. So it's local businesses now, so they don't have the same level of employment as a grocery store does, but it's actually a really nice collection of small businesses. So they are, and if you can't, honestly, in the 72, if you count the fire station, they're probably hitting it, it's just not in the pilot anymore.
I have more than 10 now.
Yeah, they're kind of guessing, because again, it's tenants, and also, actually, I think they're basing this now on their own, so, and that's not really what the application is. So it's, so yeah, they probably do have more than 10 people there between the Citizen and all the other small businesses. But that's just kind of the history of that site, and that things have just changed really drastically since that pilot started.
And it's near its conclusion.
It is very close to being done. Thank you.
Anything else you want to say? Sure.
I'll just note that I did schedule, you've been getting email invites from me. I did schedule some monitoring visits for board meetings. We will next month be at the Hilton. Right now, we're planning to do it in one of the ballrooms, like one of the half ballrooms. I told them if they have an event that's going to come in and pay for the room, to move us to the conference room, because I'd rather have them have paid customers. But for right now, unless something else gets scheduled, we'll be in one of the half ballrooms. WST 33, that's Plaza of the Arts. And I wanted to get in there because their pilot is also coming to an end soon. I've also been hearing rumblings in the community that there might be changes happening to their, like, who's in their building. So I just wanted to make sure we got in there towards the end of the pilot and had a conversation with them. That'll be in June, I think we decided on, and then in August, we have at least a tour scheduled at the new Walmart facility. I've also reached out to Cassie to see if they would entertain us doing another one, or doing a meeting at their facility in the fall, since these are all kind of front-loaded, and I just haven't. Joe's gone, I don't know, I'm having a hard time getting a hold of them. So, yep, but that's it. I just wanted to make sure we had that conversation to comply with our corrective action plan.
Just a quick question. So discussions about referencing the numbers there, 72 versus 26. Is that enough to terminate the pilot, just that alone? If it's okay. So that, like, if this becomes an issue with this RJC, we don't have to prove that, as he was stating, that he's having problems hiring because, not because people don't want to work, it's other issues. We don't have to prove that that's the reason. It's enough that we're not meeting that number.
Anything else?
Yes.
Although labor law violations are very troubling.
Say that again.
I said labor law violations are very troubling.
Yes.
Failure to comply with applicable law.
Yeah, I mean, when I go to Central New York Labor Council meetings, those guys, it's a shark tank right now. They're fighting fighting each other for labor. It's unbelievable. They can't get enough. They're putting guys through their training centers faster than they ever have. So, I mean, a guy like that, he doesn't have a chance with the money he makes. And he's just small, but a lot of small companies are doing it. A lot of work between my time and I-81, 481.
That's true. Yeah, and so I was just gonna, so Matt, to your question, really think about it the opposite way of like a discrepancy like that. We almost start from why shouldn't we terminate as opposed to why should we?
Sure.
So it's almost like the opposite.
Sure.
Yeah, our goal is to help and do what we can for you being successful. So.
And I would, we just talked about the audit, I would equate it to the fact, we were audited, which is normal, and there were discrepancies there. And they gave us corrective action plan. I think that was the first step in Tracy talking, and now we're gonna send a letter. The city had some issues, whether they're legitimate or not, you've got an opportunity, I think, to try to address this.
And I just think we need to make it a habit, Tracy, so if you could keep us apprised of situations that you think warrant that kind of correspondence from us, that would be great. So, on we go. Want to talk about target industry selection, Tracy?
Yes, please. So, this is something that has been on our strategic framework since last year that we want to talk about, kind of thinking about what are some important industries that perhaps we're not clearly serving right now that we should be proactively looking to serve. And this could be existing industries, it could be emerging industries. So I just put together some information for you about kind of what's happening in Cuyahoga County and Auburn right now. And wanted to have this conversation so that, part of the work plan for this year is to have this conversation and then incorporate this into some of the site visits. So part of the work plan is to do some site visits with businesses we don't have current pilots with. And so figuring out what industries we want to focus on will help me figure out who to go out and visit, because there's not really capacity to do this all day, every day. So if I'm going to make 5 visits this year, how am I deciding who I'm going to see? And so this is going to help me with that. And so I'm thinking if we can get 2 to 3 target industries selected, I can then that will also help us with the marketing committee and creating messaging and talking points. So doing this will really help us figure out what are some of those next steps. So in this overview, I made some suggestions right at the top. I think it feels obvious, but it probably makes sense to talk about the micron supply chain, because that is an immediate opportunity. And, we as the economic development community regionally are talking about this in a 2-tier model. There's the first tier suppliers that are gonna wanna locate right on top of Micron. But then there's a second tier that's gonna look further out, for cheaper real estate, other opportunities, being closer to other customers, other things they're thinking about. But even now we're hearing that first tier of suppliers, some of them are willing to go out 60 miles. So we are well positioned to be in the supply chain. So that's why I put it here, and I think it seems relevant and logical. Construction and trades, for all the reasons we've been talking about, is a really hard thing right now. And really, this really probably should be more of a workforce priority. I think that's a huge issue for that industry. So for us to target it for growth might be too early for that. I might be putting the cart before the horse there. But it is showing up a lot in different data and trends. So yeah, anyway. Thoughts, priorities, concerns, what's missing?
Have you considered UAVs?
Unmanned aerial vehicles.
Yes. So Auburn is just outside the drone corridor. right now, but I would expect that to expand, you know, within the next 5 to 10 years, be in that area. It may expand sooner.
It might be interesting too, to take a look at the companies that are being incubated in the new Inspire Center in Syracuse. And just kind of get a sense of, because a lot of those companies are choosing to conduct some of their business in this immediate area. And it might be interesting to see what's happening in there, if there's any opportunity in there for us to connect. The Inspire Center is a project that was, heavily supported by Center State CEO, and it's very technology driven, it's got all kinds of stuff, but they incubate startup companies, mostly in the tech industry, there, so it might be interesting just to see what's percolating there as it impacts our region.
I remember very specifically that it's Inspire with a Y.
It is. It's a beautiful building, if you're in Syracuse, I encourage you to go, it's like, it's, on Harrison Street.
It used to be the Tech Garden.
It used to be the tech.
It's right kitty corner to the on center,
Mhm.
right across from them, or more.
Well, they're fun. And again, we, talked about this, that we wanted to, of course, support our legacy industries, but also one of our priorities is to position Auburn as a great place for companies to come and do work, and Tracy's trying to scale, her outreach in that arena, so she created this list of prospective industries for us to consider, so that she can start to really schedule some of those visits from our community. The industry she has. Just have a clarifying question for you. So when you're at your regional meetings and they're talking about the first tier and the second tier of the supplier, folks from Micron, are they identifying the specific kinds of industries and companies they're looking for?
Kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. I mean, the partners have kind of guessed as to what those are.
Are you meaning the partners, the people that
The
are?
economic development partners.
Okay, that's what
So like the Center State.
Right.
Center States of the region have put together what they think with some input from Micron, but it's not been super clear. And so, you know, one thing in tier 2 is like the packaging, and we have plenty of existing businesses that make sense in that realm. The tier 1 are gonna be things, I think, like the chemicals, like any like chemicals or gases that are needed, like how this stuff works.
You don't have to. I'm just kind of.
Well, like, the more like chemistry-like stuff and, some of the stuff that can't, because of the nature of what they're doing, can't be transported long distances, because it needs to be in a clean space.
Mhm.
Although Tessie is doing a lot of really cool clean room stuff, as his career, so, but yeah, so it's some of those immediate kind of like more volatile things that are kind of want to be much closer, whereas things like packaging and some of the logistics, like our trucking companies might have opportunities. So yeah.
Mhm. Sure.
So yeah, Center State has a much better picture of this than I do.
Right.
But, we did go through and give them, we have gone through and identified a number of existing Cuyahoga County businesses that maybe, that we want to reach out to have a conversation about if they want to expand into that supply.
What's your, sorry, Nat, or anyone?
Before you go on, could you explain what the bullet specialized health services, what are they talking about?
So these are things, so like the cancer center would fit into that category, obviously, like, we already have that, but that would be something that would fit into this category.
Yeah.
So like specialized health treatment, it could also be related to like home health care.
Because I spent 6.5 hours Monday with my friends at Auburn Hospital. They have additional things
Yep.
right now.
Yeah. There could be things outside of the hospital atmosphere though, like certain types of treatment centers, or I'm just seeing a lot of like job movement in this category specifically.
I sit on the Loretto Management Corporate Board of Directors, and we had all of the administrators of hospitals, and then long-term care, and then Center State CEO was there. And this concept is becoming more popular for people in healthcare. They're looking to create economies of scale. They're recognizing, you're starting to sort of say the U of R, ACH, right? So that's just happening in the region. I think it might be something just to keep our eyes on, because they're doing it and to create, you know, economies of scale. And also, though, they're seeing that they can generate more revenue for themselves as they place specialized health services in these places betwixt and between Rochester, Syracuse, and Boston. So I just think we should pay attention, and maybe we should pay a different kind of attention to what's happening at AC. Tracy, what's your instinct saying to you about this? Like, if you were gonna do 5 visits, what would you do? We'll follow you down Yellowbrook Road. What would you want to do? What's your gut tell me?
Under manufacturing, value-added agriculture is interesting, because we're logistically in a good spot, but also because we have all the farms around us, but also easy access to 90. So honing in on value-added agriculture. The backside of that being, there aren't a lot of sites appropriate for that in Auburn. You know, the tech park, you know, obviously we could get a couple in there. There might be a couple of existing buildings that are vacant, but there's not a lot of space for something like this.
Can you make sure we all understand what you mean when you say value-added health?
So this is.
I'm trying to answer for myself.
Yeah. So value-added agriculture is taking raw agricultural products and turning them into something higher value. So, food manufacturing, like CMI is value-added, agriculture, or like someone who makes chips. They take potatoes and they turn them into potato chips. That would be value-added, or compostable silverware that takes soybeans or some other type of plant, matter and turns it into disposable silverware, you know. So that's the kind of thing. There actually was a site inquiry that came through that I just actually today submitted the tech park for, just so you know. It's called Project Potato. That's why I'm thinking about potato chips. But so these things are happening in the region, and then with Chobani and CMI and Fairlife, you know, there's obviously supply chain implications there for milk product. So just kind of things related to that food manufacturing, value-added agriculture, whether it's supply chain or direct in that industry. I think micro supply chain only makes sense just because that's what we're focused on regionally. I actually, since you mentioned it, UAB sounds really cool too, but that's more of an attraction play than a going out and visiting existing businesses that are in that industry. But yeah, so those are the two. I think also film would be more of an attraction strategy, but things like sound stages, finding someone to bring in a sound stage. Gwen and I saw a really interesting presentation about this at the Cooperstown conference last year. Sound stages bring in a lot of money to the community because these film crews bring everybody in, and they're all staying in hotels, and they're catering local food, and they're going to local stores to get what they need for sets and props, and they're actually pretty big. And then we're centrally located in a way that is also close to sites that might be interesting for filming. So anyways, that would also be more of an attraction. So in terms of existing businesses, I think from micron supply chain and value-added agriculture and potentially tourism, those would be the three that make the most sense if we're focusing on things that already exist in the community, and trying to figure out, like, okay, what's complementary to you that we could either attract, or what are your expansion plans? Those kind of make the most sense.
Do you have access, or is it accessible? I know when Micron was just talk, you know, a few years ago, and they had at council, they were inviting people to get online and say if you want to be a supply chain person. So are there industries in Auburn, do you know, that have signed up for this, so that we know which ones have interest and which ones have not?
So I don't know that sign-up thing works the way they intended it to.
Okay.
So I don't know who expressed interest, but I do know who the highest, the most likely candidates are in terms of their current capabilities versus what might be needed. And so we have a list of those that we're working with Center State on doing some outreach to those and, making those connections to start having those conversations about, okay, are you interested? If so, what resources do you need to get from here, where you are, to being in that supply chain? Do you need new equipment? Do you need training? Do you need land? Do you need, and so we're actually this month starting to do that outreach to those businesses.
When you say we, who are you talking about?
So Center State, myself, Jenny Haynes, Steve Lynch, Carrie Terwelliger, but also, CEO, which is an organization out of Syracuse. It's another regional organization that provides technical assistance for things exactly like this. Like, okay, how do we expand your business into a new product line? Like, what are the resources you need? And they help to align all those resources. So there's a few resource partners that are involved. But
I could just see if I was, let's say, a manufacturer or whatever, it's like, hey, I'm being payroll right now. I haven't got time for this,
mhm.
in getting stuck in the times and missing the opportunity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So is it, as we're talking about this, are there some that you've already identified under legacy so that we're manufacturing that this is in the works and we really don't need to, as a board, do anything at that point? Or is there something that we should get behind?
I think it's something that is worth getting behind, and being in line with, because that will help us access those resources. Okay. And also it like helps me build it into my capacity to say, this is a priority for the board, so I'm gonna go visit these companies. Whereas if we identify other things, I might be like, well, go for it, Center State. I have these other industries to focus on. So I think it helps to show them that you're putting your resources, meaning me, behind what they're also doing.
I think this is why, I just want to recap it in my own mind. So I hear this almost as a positioning strategy for our ADA at this point. And then if I'm hearing you, your presence in these spaces is about making sure we're on their radar. And then you being able to gather the intel because you're in the mix. And then you will be keeping that in mind as you identify these 5 companies. I have a great sense of well, but okay, great. I just want to understand that, so we understand, because the other thing that we need to be cognizant of is that positioning is really important. We all know that micron's like huge, so that it could take some time till we see a specific outcome. But I think it is important for us to be at the table. So Tracy, what would be the next? I mean, I know there's more to go over, so.
Yeah, so I guess to the extent that any of these are of particular interest, I'm just looking for direction.
Right.
So I can say what I'm doing is aligning with what the board is looking to accomplish. So if there are things of particular interest to the board in terms of industries, I mean, right now I really need to focus on existing, although some of these are very much interesting attraction opportunities.
Let me point out, with respect to Micron, there's an industry group called Semi,
So yeah, we're working with them too.
working with them too. They have conventions all over the world. Obviously there's a cost to it, but, Ryan McMahon was the one.
Yep.
Bob Petrovich went. That was in Tokyo. I'm not suggesting sending anybody to Tokyo.
I'll go to Tokyo. Could be a fun one.
But I think there's one in San Francisco. Like I said, obviously there's a cost to it. And I don't know how significant that would be with their exhibitor. I was trying to look it up just now what their exhibitor cost was, and I couldn't find it. But throwing up a booth could be helpful both to the IDA and to the city and to any potential companies. Not that far from Micron's new site.
Any other thoughts, Harvard, Scott, what's going on?
He wants to fix them right now, don't he?
Well, what I'm kind of thinking, based on this conversation, we can come back to it, but like, let's just throw our eggs in the basket. And I'll focus on this.
And Trish, I think that I would offer a recommendation that if you want to help us pay attention to it, that once you kind of get a better sense of how you want to, your capacity to do it, and the industries you see is interesting, if you could kind of give us your A list, your B list, or your C list, that would be really great, so that we just are aware. And then I think that might push us to be better able to offer more ideas. So I trust your instinct and your gut about this. I would invite the board to take another look at this through this lens. And then if you're aware of other industries or emerging industries that we would want to get on the radar about, I think that would be great. And I would like to say this because I'm in the regional economic development sphere. I also think this is very important because when I sit in Roosevelt or I hear Jenny, I'm thinking, wow, there's a lot going on. I don't think other people are aware of that. Auburn is a spot, it's a place to be. And so I love, Tracy, that you'll be out there positioning us in that way. Because if we're not at the table, we will be on the menu. And I just think that we really need to be at the table. Because I think there is a lot of opportunity. We just need to brag about ourselves. And you are the bragger in charge.
Oh my gosh.
And then I think, Bill, that this will help us give the marketing committee some direction. I think it'll also help us identify maybe some conversations we need to have within the county with some of our colleagues about some of this as well. Right, so, and this is not the time for anybody in the economic development space to be confused. So I trust you to kind of to guide us in that direction, and you can take an organic next step on what you need from us.
And again, Auburn is full of creative people. And when you look at MedNet, and they started off in a garage, upper garage. Courier Plastic, he started off, same thing. And there's a lot of innovation, and we've got a lot of unsung heroes, whether it's, I can't think of the name of the place that's on the corner to the Hollywood that you just visited.
Oh, Avery Gleason.
Avery Gleason, and I see Hammond and Irving are hiring. I mean, and these are all little, but they've been tied and, tried and true. And whether or not there's opportunity for them, or what have you, yeah.
Trish, could you show us the Cuba County data? And what's the story that tells you to tell us?
I agree. I think we have to revisit this conversation, this discussion, and definitely take heed of what's going on with Micron. I do.
So what is this, that chart, Tracy?
So, construction and contractor shows up everywhere, pretty much. And both in terms of employment and wages. And then parts of manufacturing, but different components of manufacturing show up everywhere. But in different ways.
That the construction and contractor industry is up 10,000.
That's an average. So some of those and I actually did dig into this a little bit, and like there's very specific, like specialty contractors, their wages are going through the roof, because they're in short supply. And, so there's some fudging in the data, but, that's just something to really keep an eye on. And I know there's some conversations about workforce programming regionally in this area of construction and contracting, and potential opportunities if they can find the right funding sources in Cuba County to bring some very successful programming. But those are very early stage conversations, and they'll have some things to work out. But I think think what I'm gonna say I'm gonna do is I'm gonna focus on, in terms of existing businesses, focus on the supply chain for Micron and make sure we're leveraging all of those resources. And then when there's space, I'm gonna like start asking questions about the film industry, because I think it's cool. And we are the home of sound on film. Why wouldn't we have a sound stage? Right? Right, Mayor?
Right. That presentation was very interesting, very cool. So Tracy, so this is basically saying that for the top 10 for 2024, is that saying to us that those specific industries were the top employers in Kingston County?
Yes.
And then the growth, the top 10 growth 21 is where we saw the highest level of growth?
Yes.
I would just say from this conversation, we really need to pay attention to where we are employing people and its relationship to what's happening in the region. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I also think it speaks to more the county level about workforce development initiatives, but if I'm hearing you say, for example, that 10K happened because of specialty kind of construction, I think as a county, we want to understand that when we're thinking about workforce development. Am I making sense? Because this is the time of day, it starts to sound like Charlie Brown wanted to myself. Okay, good. So do you know what I'm saying with this, Trace? And I just want to make sure that we're having an awareness of this, because there's sort of this aspirational thing we're doing, and then there's this reality. So I think all of it adds value. I think all of it contributes to the development of the community. But we need to monitor the trend and then see how we're performing against the trend so that we can even be more specific in what we might want to do.
Yeah. I think the other thing to just know about the growth, and this is just since the pandemic,
Right.
like, 'cause I felt like going back before that years. But it really speaks to this trend of upstate communities diversifying their economies. Upstate used to be very much manufacturing, and now it's very much services, healthcare. We're getting old, nursing facilities, traveler accommodation. So our economy is very much diversifying. So we're having less of that concentrated employment in the industry and more, for better or worse, across a variety of economic drivers. So it does make it a little more complicated to like pick a target.
And this would be an area I'm sure that I'm feeling like we have shared understanding about that trend, because I've experienced that the philosophy still is, man, if we could just get the next new core to come in, right? And I think the more we understand this dynamic, the better it positions us to really think about workforce development and for what do we really want to impact to the community, because it's happening all around us. Again, I'm just saying, sitting in our county, I don't hear us having shared understanding or conversation about this as a thing. And I want us to be leading the table.
I'll put that as a board education for future meetings.
Tracy, at what point when a project comes to us, whether it's industrial, housing, you engage municipal utilities for a conversation about capacity?
It depends on where the project is once it gets to me. Sometimes they've already had those conversations, if it's site selection, unless it's something like super big that I don't think we can handle based on the knowledge I do have, usually we get shortlisted.
Because you're right, I mean, some of what Auburn can offer, water and sewer, we just upgraded water filtration, we're in the process of upgrading wastewater, but my concern is, I see 100 units proposed in Owasco, I see there's 70 acres for sale in Senate, there's only one thing that's gonna go there, it's gonna be housing. At what point does that consume our capacity because they're on our water and sewer, and then prevent something at Bombardier? So that's a conversation I've already started with Seth.
Yes.
That's our director of municipal utilities, like, what does this look like, and what does the approval process look like?
Right.
So I just wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that conversation.
What's that?
Annexation.
Listen, that's the word, and we're about to go into a budget season where the only thing long-term that's gonna fix any of this is annexation and regionalization. We're eating each other, and it's ridiculous.
That's why I said,
No, you're right.
Historically.
Yeah.
That's why I said.
And it's good, we've talked about it the entire time I've been around, but it's to a point of necessity now. Because none of us survive if we don't get serious.
Same way with school districts.
Yes.
Is any more on that board? I would invite you to get into relationships with this information, and then Tracy will guide us through how, we would move in that area. I was excited about that conversation.
Hope you never plan on leaving.
No, Tracy's gonna be here, should my children decide to be in a nursing home. I've got a whole cadre of mine.
You can't get rid of it.
They tell me no, but I'm in good stead with them today.
I do want to get through this, because it's important. Yes. And Karen is like breathing down my back about it. Ada has,
I went to the conference, they told me,
ask for more.
other people say, other industries, IDs are doing.
Yeah, so Ada hasn't adjusted fee policy since 2015 or 2016, so it's time. And there's been a few things that's happened over the last year that have made us be like, we should be charging for this. So, I have a proposed fee policy. There are a couple of changes just under the legal fees here. I was guessing when I was writing this, but, in speaking with Rob, we think that it should be 4,000, 4,000, and 6,000 for the small projects on the legal flat fees, just because of where things are, and.
Legal fees is inflated too.
Yeah.
But
We're all inflated.
Yeah.
So, what I did here, was I made a nice little table, basically keeping our administrative fees costs, those big fees that they pay at closing. I kept those the same, but I increased our application fees, doubled them actually, and then added for pilots in particular, added an annual monitoring fee of $1,000 per year. For those seeking, and then the other thing I did was if someone is seeking a deviation from the UTEP, where they need to have that consultant come on board, I added an additional $500 to the application fee, but then they also have to pay a retainer and pay for the contract for the consultant. But I just added that application fee because there's more coordination for me on that.
So the 1,000 for the application fee, that was previously 500.
Yes. And then for small projects where they're using sales and use tax only or mortgage reporting tax only, I left the application fee at 500. It's a shorter application process, an approval process. I increased the flat admin fees a little bit on those. I think they were like 1,000 and then 2,000 for both or something like that, but I increased those a little bit. And then instead of monitoring fees that are like a regular annual fee, those projects only usually last 2 to 3 years, maybe 4, and we're not billing them on an annual basis anyway. So instead of having a monitoring fee that is automatically billed, I built it in as a penalty. So if you don't have your reporting to us when we ask you for it, we're going to charge you a fee because I now have to chase you down. So it will encourage them to get their reporting in, but also not add an extra step for those people who are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that feels easier for me. And then I also added in, we've been seeing more requests from existing projects to either terminate or to extend or to modify a mortgage. So I added in some fees for those based on the time that I was spending on the ones that I've been doing recently. So those terminations that I did, or that we did last year, each of them we ended up charging about $1,000 to. So I just built in $1,500. If you want to terminate your pilot, fine, you're paying us $1,500 for that, plus the legal.
But it's 2,000, right?
On the assignment, oh yes, I'm sorry, 2,000.
Okay.
I'm building us in a lot of wiggle room.
No, that previously not even existed.
Not even existent. And normally for like a mortgage amendment, in the past, we charged $1,000. I bumped that up to $1,500. So I just built out a fee schedule for these things that our existing projects come to us for. left to like, hey, if something else comes up, we're still gonna charge you, I just don't know what. So left it open if something unique comes up. And then I also added a section on time to closing, because we do have these 2 projects right now that are taking a long time to get closed. I said it as, I said, you know, if you don't close within 6 months, unless you've otherwise made arrangements with us, knowing that it's gonna take longer than that, you would need to get reapproved, and in doing so, we need to pay a new application fee. But I'm open to adjusting the 6 months. Rather than maybe 60 days. I think probably something in between 60 and 50 days.
Yeah, 6 months is too.
What did you say?
6 months is way too long.
Yeah, well, in some of the projects, this is August.
Mhm.
So Rob, what do you see when organizations have something like this, what's the amount of time?
4 months, I think is fair. I just think 6 months. I mean, I say 60 days because I want things to move along and get them off my plate. I mean, there's an opportunity cost. It becomes a problem, and like this one that's taking since August. Set it down, you put it aside, you have to revisit it, it drives up the legal bill. So I think 4 months is appropriate.
Any other reactions to 4 months, changing from 6 to 4?
What about 90 days?
90 days.
I like
If
90
we
days.
do 90,
I'm fine with that too.
And that could be our policy, and then if there's reasonable reason, then we have to consider it. Bill, or anybody else having a reaction to 90 days?
So in this document, for the project that's been lingering, what does that do?
We can't retroactively enforce the policy necessarily.
Right.
Kingsville Street is closed.
Yeah, Dill Street should be within the next week.
Okay,
Because I need the cash.
all right, okay.
Um,
But for the projects that we, entertained, kind of superficial level, and a couple
oh, we could apply this.
of items.
I've actually already given at least one of them a heads up that this is.
And,
Because none of them have actually submitted an application.
correct. Right. This is all the high spots that I've been interested in, and especially, like you said, knowledge, information is power, you go to these conferences, there are other places that are doing it. I don't mean to interrupt, but she's so enthusiastic over what happened, can you share, you know, and there it is, right out there, so, yes, I think.
Tracy has presented us to this as a draft, but she liked if we would make a motion to approve the updated fee policy. Does the board feel prepared to do that today?
I'll move that.
Thank you, Dan, a second. Thank you, Mayor. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, extensions? Great. And then we just have the,
One question, where is Builder's Choice?
Builder's choice?
Yeah.
I don't think they're coming back.
It doesn't, I talked to John. They went to planning, had their first presentation of planning. It's gonna be on the agenda again next month. I said, are you coming back, David? And he's like, I don't know. But they're moving the project forward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it doesn't sound like they're coming back.
So they've got other, resources that they're, exercising.
I mean, I don't wanna speak for him, it just didn't sound like, he was like, I don't know if we're coming back or not, so.
I think they spent a lot of this budget on the rail, which is done now. So I think that changed the, since they've already done that, I think that might have changed the, calculus.
Unfinished business items, right?
I would be happy, so, I do wanna do the, audit and marketing committee, I wanna get our committees set.
Right.
Because there's a lot of work for the marketing committee to do this year. One question that has arisen is, are we okay with non-Auburn residents being on the marketing committee? We have opted to restrict residency for the board, but this committee is not just board members, so I just wanna be clear as to the board's desire for this particular committee, given that it's a specialized kind of skill set. Matt is interested in being on it. Okay, thank you. But some of the other people, I did reach out to Hillary. She's not available this year, but asked that I come back next year. But she does not live in Auburn either. So I just want to be clear about the expectations here.
Do you, well, first of all, let's start there. What's your feeling about people sitting on the marketing committee who are not city residents?
I would say someone would have to work real hard to talk me into that.
I think for the marketing committee in particular, there are a lot of people that have interest in Auburn that don't live in Auburn.
They work in Auburn?
They work in Auburn, they have businesses in Auburn, they, spend time and money in Auburn, but also, the people with the right skill sets can start to get very thin for something, for something specialized, when we're not opening up the opportunity. And we could be missing some really good, skill, talent, if we don't consider folks that have a vested interest in Auburn but might not live in Auburn.
I see where you're coming from. I've been listening to you from day one. I know how serious you are about your city. And, but being realistic and doing the pros and cons, we wanted to see with this committee, you brought up a good aspect right now. But people have businesses here, working here, not from Auburn. We don't want them to run away with a situation that we really could use right now. So I see both. I see both. Not that I disagree with you or you, but I see both.
Statutorily, are there any grants?
No, not a threat committee, no.
Let's talk it through lower level. I doubt this would happen, but optic-wise, the mayor, you're out and about, we create this committee, we announce that people say to you, or to me, you know how I roll. But you and I have to be
I think a board member versus a specialized committee member are two different things. I don't think there'd be too much criticism. I agree with Alexander's approach, like, you gotta live here, work here. There's gotta be a connection, or there's gotta be some type of connection, right? Like, we can't be having people from Rochester on that, but somebody lives in Senate when they work in Auburn. It's a subcommittee, they're not voting members.
They're not making any decisions on behalf.
Right. They're lending their talent to help move us forward. I mean, it's no different than, I think, hiring agency out of Syracuse to work for us, right? We hired a marketing firm.
The one that I have, just based on my experience in Geneva, is one thing we could do is put out like a call for committee members. Say we're gonna prioritize interested people from Auburn, but if you live outside, we'll consider your application and build a committee based on that call. It's gonna push back some of the work plan that, but that's arbitrary. So we could do something like that, since we literally have Matt right now. Matt is the committee.
Matt, there could be joy and challenge.
Good luck, man.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna lie, I just put it out on my Facebook today, because I have 3 different boards that are looking for people, and I just put it out there, and just say who's interested in stuff. But.
Trace, how many people do you think would be ideal for the committee?
5.
So a young woman named Naya Bookman just opened up a social media marketing company here in Auburn. You can look at, and it's in her name, so if you looked her up on Facebook, I think she just announced, she's really talented, smart, born and bred. She, I don't know if you know, Chet Holmes, her father was a big athlete, or his heyday.
Just a jet.
Yeah. Her dad said that, and I know the truth. But, so, like, she might be someone, and I'm thinking that there's a lot of these emerging leaders in the community that are starting these kinds of businesses. I'm not opposed to having someone who doesn't physically live in Auburn, as long as, I'm not disregarding, I'm just putting all the information out there. As long as they align with some criteria, right? Like, we want them to be invested in the community. I don't have a problem if they work here, play here, go home, like Melody said, Johnson, right? But not work for the committee. But I would say, and look at Naya, I also think it would be a great opportunity for her. So.
Does she live in Auburn?
I think she does.
Yeah, I brought her up the last meeting.
Yeah.
I texted Chuck because she's done some work at the ERHC.
Yeah,
And I looked her up, and I think she lives in Auburn.
yeah, she just announced the formation of her company. So, and, you know.
Oh, is that who you meant at the ERHC, not Hillary?
I'll say something.
Hillary's good too, but-
She's Keisha's daughter. Keisha's daughter. So she seems to be really talented. So I have to say these things while I remember them, because I might not even know I said this in 5 seconds. So, thank you. That's one. But I just want to kind of get your gut feeling about maybe being in Auburn of the criteria, and then having some drop downs from that, so that we have a way to vet people.
So to piggyback what you're saying, coffee volunteers, would that be appropriate, like at council, to have either truck as an announcement?
I'd rather.
Yeah, I think it needs to be at Ada. It needs to come from Ada. So how are you feeling?
Anything you say at city council, you're opening up criticism.
Okay,
You
all
know,
right,
that's like,
enough said.
Yeah, I think,
Especially if you're talking about people don't have to be from Auburn. That's why I asked the optics question. So, how are people feeling? It sounds like we wanna, if we prioritize Auburn residency, and then didn't get enough candidates, would we be willing to look at someone who works here,
owns a business here.
owns a business here?
Well, I think another good aspect, another answer to all of our conversation right now with this particular situation is you can get the applications if we open the door with the application, like you said, which I think is a great idea, because now I'm gonna have more insight on you, and do my own homework investigation, but they may just all be Auburn applicants. Or at least a good 75% of them. So I wouldn't, let it discourage you. Another thing too, is speaking about NIA and economic development taking off, that age group has a lot to do with our economic development right now, the world we live in. So it may not be a bad idea to look into a younger generation with marketing.
Yeah, I did reach out to a couple of professors at CCC and did not. But I was thinking about that.
I wonder if Counselor Cuddy has a student in his
Yeah.
media class. High school student, but.
Yeah.
They talk with his outside, when we talk, they would have the.
You may have some graduates.
Yeah, but what I'm thinking too, fresh ideas, this committee, shelf.
Which I would say. I always think so.
Yeah, right, but because of,
What you trying to say?
changes in board membership
Yeah.
and so forth, and it's time for a jumpstart.
So I'm feeling that, Tracy, you're proposing a way to help us identify people so that Matt has some friends.
Yeah.
And I think if you just shape that up for us, I think it would be helpful, and I think it's another way, frankly, for us to be saying in the community that we're about our work and that we're doing it well. So I think that if you're open to doing like a call for volunteers, like we frame it up in our strategic priorities, how we talk about it, I think it's gonna be really important, that it's definitely connected to work, that one of our strategic priorities, and we're looking to build a team of people, 5 people to help us with this, and we can be kind of specific about what it is we think
I'll bring that up and I'll send it around as well.
All righty, moving along.
Okay.
I have a feeling time is a tick.
Yeah, I'm like, what can we skip?
Gotta pay bills.
Yeah, we have to pay the bills. I can skip my general updates. I'll just like send an email if I need to. The bills are in the packet. We've got the final MRB group bill. We've got my first bill, and we have, one registration for the state of the city and county, who I will be representing. I will also be there. So those are the bills.
Make a motion to pay bills.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Righty?
Are there any questions on the financials? One thing, the finance committee did meet, and I think the thing that we really wanted to, stress is that our cash situation is not great at the moment. We do have these receivables that we expect, but it's something that we need to pay very close attention to. We have these receivables, we have a really good pipeline, so I can see the corner, we just haven't gone around the corner yet. So it's something that we're optimistic about, but also want to be very cognizant of and paying attention to, as we're in these next couple of months. So, until we turn that corner. So I think that was the main takeaway from our conversation. But happy to answer any questions about the financials or.
Anyone have any questions about the financials? Yeah, picking up what Tessa was putting down. All right, if so, I would entertain a motion to accept our treasurer's report as it was. And second? Thank you, Donnie. Thank you, Terry. Any more discussion? Not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, okay.
I think we can skip board education.
Okay, any quick board updates? Anybody got anything to tell us?
If, I'd like to just, probably that, unless there's somebody else that wants to go, I went last year, it was pretty informative, but I understand that there's some constraints.
The registration just opened for that, May 20th through 22nd, it's $575 per person, plus hotel and travel.
Can you send that information out to the board, Tracy, with a request and a deadline for people to respond? It's really a great event if people do it. And then there was the other one, is it?
Which event was that again, Gwen?
That was for Cooperstown, the near.
Right.
May 20th to the 20th.
And you and I talked about that one. Yeah.
So I would encourage anyone who can go to go, not Karen or representative to check out the place around that point. All right, did we get everything done we need to get done today? All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mayor, like we're ready. Anybody, Mayor, second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, I appreciate your
Thank you.
help. Thank you.
Sorry, that was a long one.
What?